Today on Cityline, forensics, genealogy, and murder. We take a more scientific approach to our nation's history and our own. Welcome back. Historians have always posed the question, who were the first Americans? Were they Mongolians, Native Americans? How does Christopher Columbus and the Spanish explorers fit into the timeline? Well, in a time when defining what it means to be American is a bit difficult, Dr. David Imhotep offers an answer that you won't find in any grade school history books. His recently published book, The First Americans Were Africans, claims that none other than Africans were the first to set foot on American soil. Dr. Imhotep joins us today in the studio to discuss his findings. Welcome to Cityline.
Thank you.
Let's start with the fact that you have the world's first PhD in ancient African history. Tell us a bit about your decision to pursue your doctorate in this particular field.
Well, as I was coming up through the ranks, I wanted to deal with black history, but not the type of black history that we talk about today, which is African American history. I wanted to go back to ancient history, so that degree did not exist. So I got together with the Union Institute University, that is the one of the first universities that is accredited, that will let you find experts in the fields and that in the sideline fields, and then you can put together a team to create a new PhD, which is what I did.
Now, where did you do this research? How did you do this research?
Okay, where did I do this? Some of the research on site. I've been to Egypt a couple times, Nubia, Mexico, Hawaii, and there is also in New Hampshire, I believe, in Salem, New Hampshire, there is a place where they call the American Stonehenge, which most people don't know about.
And I understand you have many published papers supporting all of the writings that are in your book.
Yes, 7 peer-reviewed articles, soon to be 8, will back up the statements that I am making about the first Americans were African.
Now, it's a very bold statement about the first inhabitants of America being African. Tell us about that.
Well, 56,000 years ago, it seems that people from Africa sailed to South America, Piedra Farida. 56,000 years ago, we have artifacts and ancient hearths that come from fires and whatnot. And we see that they came there at 51,000.
How did they come from Africa to what we consider North America?
To North America, 51,700, all of those places that came by ship. And I'm not talking about wood ships, I'm talking about the reed ships. Reed ships, as Thor Heyerdahl showed that you could sail a reed ship from Africa to South America in his Ra 2 experiment.
So they came to the Americas, not necessarily what we consider North America.
They were first in South America 56,000 years ago, and then we have a place, Dr. Al Goodyear, University of South Carolina, found a area in South Carolina that dates back to 51,700 BC.
And what evidence was found to support the arrival of the Africans in these places?
Okay, I mentioned the ones in the first place. The second place, I will say that they found flint spear tips and arrowheads or arrow tips.
Now, this would be, of course, a great surprise to historians who have taught us that Columbus and the Spaniards, or even Native Americans, were the first inhabitants of these lands.
Yes, that is a story that needs to be updated.
Well, why do you think the story was not told? Why wasn't the evidence found prior to the information that you have in this book?
I would say a combination of politics in the beginning, and in the later years, I could not tell you. That's something for a political analyst to analyze. All I do is research and report the findings.
Tell us some of the more surprising findings that we will read about in your book.
Other than the 56,000 years ago, there is a gigantic pier and breakwater 1 mile due west of the Bahamas that you can see today in 20 feet of water. When the Bahamas sank, the Great Bahama Bank, around 7,000 BC, as is in Mr. Boss's dissertation, a fellow named Boss. There was a gigantic island, and there is a pier and a breakwater that you can see, as I said today, in the breakwater. We're talking about 600 yards long, gigantic blocks, as in the pyramid, and between the blocks there is no cement, as in the pyramid, and also as in the pyramid, you can barely fit a razor blade in between. So the analogy there is very, very similar, that these people were conducting international trade. There is, when Cortez, the Spanish conquistador, visited, I say very lightly, the Aztecs, he saw that the King Montezuma wore a lion skin with a lion head when he met him. And then on the other end in Egypt, you see Ramses II. They did a autopsy, if you will, on his remains, and they found inside his stomach American tobacco and cocaine residue from Bolivia. So we're talking about international trade here.
And there were no lions in South America.
Absolutely not.
So they would have had
jaguars,
to come from...
but no African lions. They would have to have come from Egypt. Sorry, Africa.
How do the Aztecs and the Mayans interact with the Africans, and what impact did these Africans, other than the international trade you just mentioned, what impact have they had on the shaping of the Americas?
The Africans, the beginning before the Mayans and Aztecs, or just in general?
Just in general.
In general, well, you see, they were there 53,000 years before any other peoples come. The Mongolians, as we are taught, the Asians, who did come across the Bering Straits, did not come over until 3000 BC. That is the closest, the first evidence we have of Mongolians or Asians coming across, because in Dr. Limmick's dissertation, she found that the pass was closed 115,000 years to 8,000 BC. So no one can come over before then, and they did not exist until around 3000 BC. So the combination of the Africans who were there 56,000 years ago and the Asians who came over 3000 BC, their children are the Native Americans that we all hear about. Their children.
I see.
Not until then, not until after 3000 BC, when those two groups interact, are there Native Americans.
Well, Dr. Imhotep, this is just fascinating. Thanks for coming from Baltimore to share this information with us. Everybody, the book is called The First Americans Were Africans. It's by Dr. David Imhotep. We'll be right back with more of Cityline. Stay tuned.
To examine closely at leisure all the pieces in that collection. It is a priceless collection, and many of you have raised the question which must be pursued: what will happen when von Wuthenau, who is now 84, dies? What will happen to a collection which is of tremendous significance for us?